Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel. Today, let's take a look at MicroDexed. This DIY synth contains two DX7 emulations, one virtual analog synthesizer, an audio tracker and a drum computer, all in one tiny handy box. If you care to build the box and not use a breadboard like I did here. This build is based around the Teensy 4.1 microcontroller, and if you followed my channel in the past and built the headless Dirty Wave Mate, then you should have one of these in your drawer. So today I'm going to show you how to build this and how to use this. Here we go. Let's start with a list of the things you need for this project. I've posted links to all of these in the comments and in the description of this video. You'll need a Teensy 4.1. Best is to buy one with the headers or the pins already attached to it. This will be helpful if you want to build a full version using the official PCB, which allows you to attach flash memory for sample storage to this system. You'll also need this touch screen. This is a resistive touch screen you can find for relatively cheap on Amazon. In this video, I've used a breadboard because I'd like to reuse the parts for upcoming videos. You won't need this if you're planning to make a permanent build. This is the audio board, and while you can also use a USB audio interface, this one is highly recommended. You will also need a lot of wires. These here are fitted with pins and plugs that will allow you to connect most of the parts without soldering. You will also need an SD card to store your favorite patches and samples on, and this is an OTG USB hub, which might prove helpful in connecting more MIDI devices while also providing power to run the system. But wait, there's more! You'll need a MIDI keyboard to play some notes, and here's the 3.5 to 6.3mm audio adapter cable to connect the synth to your mixer or audio interface. And here's the USB 2.0 extension cable we will use to create a USB port on the Teensy. And last but not least, you will need two standard 5-pin encoders. Best is to buy those that don't have a PCB attached to them, as I will need to remove those over the course of this video. Now, let's get the software and compile it. I've posted all the links you need in this video's description. Download the Arduino development kit and install it. Then download the Teensy extension and install it. Then download the current MicroDexed release and unzip it to your hard drive. You now need to copy the contents of the folder third party in your MicroDexed directory to the folder libraries in your Arduino development kit directory. On Windows, this usually resides in C, Program Files, x86, Arduino libraries. Next, copy all the files from the SD folder in the MicroDexed directory to an empty SD card formatted in FAT32. For compiling the software, first make sure your Teensy is connected to your computer by USB. Then double-click the Arduino project file in the MicroDexed directory and wait until the development tool is ready. Now in the Tools menu, choose Teensy 4.1 in the board section, USB type serial and MIDI and audio, CPU speed 600 MHz, optimized for smallest code, and the port which displays your Teensy microcontroller. Then press the Compile and Upload button, the arrow on the top left. The software will now be compiled and uploaded to your Teensy. If you encounter errors here, I found the best way to get rid of them is to actually uninstall the complete Arduino development kit and reinstall a new. This will wipe all the libraries and dependencies which might have caused the problem. Now let's assemble the hardware. I began by soldering the audio board to the Teensy, but in hindsight it would have been better to start with the USB extension cable. Simply push the board onto the left hand side of the Teensy as shown here. If you're not sure which way is the correct one, read the labels on the pins and align accordingly. Then solder the pins in place. In order to connect the screen, I'm pushing the Teensy onto the breadboard here, but if you want to create a permanent build, you'll need to solder the wires to the pins according to the schematic on MicroDexed page as shown here. Now push the female ends of the cables onto the pins on the screen. Then connect the other ends of the cables to the pins of the Teensy according to the schematic. If you're not sure which one is the first pin on the screen, it's the one labeled VCC, the second one is GND, and so on. Next, let's add another USB port to the Teensy. The easiest and cheapest way to do this is to cut a USB 2.0 extension cable in half. Then remove the insulation carefully and twist the wires and apply solder to them. With the USB port of the Teensy on the left side, solder the wires to the 5 holes on the left in the following order: red, white, green, black, ground. It's a very good idea to get some pins first and attach the wires to them, because I encountered massive problems soldering the black and ground wire in place because the heat was dissipated really quickly, so I couldn't get a quality connection there. You'll see this later in the video demonstration. If you're using a breadboard, you can now put the encoders in place like this and wire them up according to the schematic. Please be aware that both the button and the actual encoder need to be grounded, so you need 4 connections to one of the Teensy's ground pins. With that, our build is done and we can now start exploring the synth. Let's take a look at the general user interface concept now. The system is controlled by the 2 encoders and the touch screen. At the moment, the touch screen is a bit underused. You can use it as a virtual keyboard and for selecting the Dexed instance. The main work is done with the encoders. Pressing the right encoder will take you deeper into a menu, and pressing the left encoder will take you to the previous page. Turning the right encoder will move the cursor around the screen or change values. Turning the left encoder will change the system volume, and on certain sequencer screens move the cursor sideways. You'll see that while I create a track later. The various tone generators are assigned to different MIDI channels. Press the left encoder once to take a look. This is the first of the 2 DX7 emulators in here. Press the right encoder once to select the other one. The next tone generator in here is a paraphonic virtual analog synth with 2 separate oscillators. This is best used for leads, bass lines, or arpeggiated sequences. Next up is a sampled drum kit containing an assortment of acoustic and electronic drum sounds. The last tone generator is the good old MDA E-Piano. It's old, but it sounds really good nonetheless. Let's take a short look at the built-in effects. Effects depend on which engine you're using, so for the DX7 sounds you can choose from chorus, delay and filter. I'm going to use this on this pad sound here. The effects can be found in the Dexed section of the menu. Here's the sound after some tweaking. By the way, that noise you heard during this presentation was caused by interference of the touch screen and the CPU with the audio card. The developers are aware of this problem and they are going to fix it with the next PCB release. Also, the current PCB is nowhere as bad as my own build here, so noise levels will be significantly lower with that. Let's take a look at the sequencer now. Return to the main menu by pushing the left encoder once or twice and then go to the sequencer menu. Begin by selecting the song option. While notes and MIDI events are recorded in patterns, you won't hear anything until you've placed your patterns in a chain and your chains in a song. Chains are an ordered collection of patterns and a song is made from 8 tracks containing 16 slots for chains each. Click the right encoder and create a new chain by selecting 00, and then turn the left encoder right to move the cursor to the chain editor. Press the right encoder once more and turn right until you see the first pattern show up. This particular pattern will contain a simple drum loop only, and the chain will loop endlessly throughout the song. We can now start playback by pressing and holding the left encoder. As our pattern is empty, we won't hear anything yet, so let's move to the pattern editor now by pressing the left encoder once more and then selecting the pattern editor. Okay, using this sequencer is most likely not what you expect it to be. As I said, we want to create a drum beat here, so the first thing we need to do is to move the cursor down like a lot, until you've reached the content type entry in the top left corner of the screen. Here you can choose drum, chord and single note tracks, but we want this to be a drum track, so set this accordingly. So now we made this into a drum track. Now move the cursor all the way to the right and select the drums as an instrument. And don't accidentally press the wrong encoder like I did here for around 4 or 5 times. Now turn the right encoder left again until you're back in the top left corner of the screen. Press once and now you can select the sample you want to use on the drum track. I'm going to create some 80s G's once more, so let's select that fat kick drum. Press the encoder once more and move the cursor to the timeline. I'm going to push 4 to the floor by moving and clicking the encoder 4 times. Press the left encoder longer to start playback. Now that was rather straightforward. Move the cursor back up again and now select the hi-hat sound, then go back to the timeline and insert that hi-hat sound between the kick drum sounds. Once again, hold the left encoder to stop playback. Now let's add a second track. We need to go back to the song editor for this. Move the cursor to the second column and press the right encoder once. Now select a new chain. You can't use 00 because we already used that for a drum pattern, so let's choose 01. Again, move the cursor to the chain editor with the left encoder. Press the right encoder once and select pattern 01, which is a new empty pattern. Now go back to the pattern editor. We're going to edit track 2 here, and as this is a melody track, the sequencer is displaying a piano roll here. Workflow is similar to the drum track. Move the cursor all the way left and select the note you want to insert. Then move the cursor into the second row here and press the right encoder once to insert the note, like this. And then move the cursor forward and insert more notes, as many as you like. In the same way, I choose G4 and C5 notes here and insert them into my pattern, turning this into a simple arpeggiated phrase. I could have used the built-in arpeggiator, but then again, I can't show you all the features in this video. You've got to figure out some things yourself. For now, return to the song editor and start playback to listen. Okay, I'm going to add a chord track off screen now and I'll come back when it's done. And thanks to nexuslabs, one of the developers of this project, for answering all my questions while shooting this video. That was a lot of work and a lot of time for both of us, so thank you very much for that. And if you happen to be a developer and want to see me talk about your project, please drop me an email at fs@floydsteinberg.com. Right, I'm back here in the song editor and you can see I've added a new pattern chain on track 3, and if we move the cursor there you can see this chain is a sequence of 16 patterns. Let's take a look at one of the patterns to see how it works. In the pattern editor, you can see the content type is chord or arpeggio, and on the right you can see I'm using the first DX7 patch for this. Again, move the cursor to the top right and you can choose the key of the chord you want to insert into the pattern, and now move the cursor over the end of the sequence and you'll be able to determine if the chord should be major, minor, seventh, and so on. So now press the right encoder, which changed the first chord here to C minor, which will not sound good in here, so let's change it back. Let's listen to this chord track in the song editor. Okay, it's time to jam along to this track. In the sequencer menu, go to the mute matrix, and here you can turn on and off tracks while playing back the song, and that's what I'll do while also improvising on the MDA E-Piano. Oh, by the way, if you like content like this, and if you want to see more in the future on projects like MicroDexed or anything else synth, then please hit that like and subscribe button now. Seeing those subscriber numbers grow makes me happy and keeps me motivated to post new videos every week or so. And if you want to support this channel financially, buying these components isn't too expensive, but it's also not cheap in the long run. You can use that super thanks button here, or just buy some of my music on Bandcamp over here. Thank you! And that's it for today. MicroDexed, built on a Teensy 4.1 microcontroller. And if you found this interesting and useful, please consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, thanks for watching and see you again very soon. Bye bye!